Now, our Justice Thursday conversation today is going to be a little bit different. We will be looking at the life and times of seasoned jurists in the country. Justice Muthoga is now a judge with the UN Mechanism for Criminal Tribunal, but he has served in very many other capacities, and that is all contained in a book that he has launched. It's called Audacity and Sacrifice, My Life and Career by Justice Muthoga. Good morning, Judge.
Morning.
How are you?
Good.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room. We call that the Situation Room hot seat. Karibu sana.
It's very hot.
How does it feel? Very hot. Huh? Now, Judge, we are the bench. You are right there in the dock.
Exactly.
Okay? You answer our questions, and we determine whether you're answering them properly or not. You've written a book, and in this book you chronicle your life. And you tell us about the things that you went through from the moment you were born under a mugumo tree.
Yes.
Justice Muthoga was born in 1945 under a mugumo tree in the rural village of Monyange in central Kenya. Perhaps his birth under this tree was a prophecy of the resilience that he would face life with and the magnitude of the contributions that he would make in Kenya and beyond. That's what we're here to talk about. But first, before we get there, we have a day's proverb. So CT Muga goes to one African country every week. He mines proverbs from that country. Then he comes and brings us a proverb a day. And the job of the person in the hot seat of the Situation Room is to listen to CT, listen to the proverb, and give us your own interpretation of that proverb. Are you ready?
Oh,
Very good.
if I know the proverb, I'll probably
Listen to him.
It's also right not to know.
I will tell you the proverb it is, and then just tell me what you think about it. Okay? Free things decreases a person's intelligence.
Just that. Free things. Once you're free, and this is what is eating our country. A perception that you can get something free. That one day you can get up and you are a rich person. Now there's betting that is going around, this foolish misunderstanding and misdirection. Wealth is created from effort.
Yes.
You have to put effort to be able to translate it into wealth. Any other way of acquiring wealth brings you wealth that will eat you up. You will grow into old age as a man or a woman who cannot even sleep soundly at night because they are unable to account to themselves of how they acquired that wealth. And that proverb actually touches that.
You put it very well, thank you.
Very well said, right?
No, it is. In fact, it's not just very well said, you've contextualized it very, very well.
Yes.
Yes.
Very, very well. Just let's start from the present. You are a judge at the UN Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals. What is that? For International Criminal Tribunals. What's that?
What's that? That does need an explanation, and I'll probably explain that. All of us looking around are old enough to remember what happened in Rwanda in 1994.
Yes.
And also in what was the former Yugoslavia. The two genocides occurred in quick succession, and the United Nations was forced to organize or constitute tribunals to try those people who were thought to be primarily responsible for those genocides. The one for Rwanda was seated in Arusha. You remember?
Yep.
Yes.
They actually wanted to sit it here, but President Daniel Arap Moi said he would arrest any of those trying to arrest those people who had run away from Rwanda. And the UN then got scared a little and decided to go to Tanzania. And they were given Arusha, and they set up a tribunal called International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. Another one was set up at The Hague in the Netherlands. And The one in The Hague was to try those people who had been thought to be primarily responsible for the genocide which occurred in what was formerly Yugoslavia. Now, these ones in Arusha, they were supposed to deal with those genocideers, we used to call them, who were thought to have been from in Rwanda and who ran out, and they were arrested, a lot of them. 91 of them were eventually indicted, and the tribunal was set up to try them. In 2003, I was elected by the General Assembly of the United Nations to go and assist as an ad litem judge. Ad litem judge is a judge who comes kwa muda for a short time, does what he has to do, goes back to where he came from, and so on and so forth. But as it turned out, although I was going for 2.5 years, or had been told it would be at most 2.5 years, 18 months to 2.5 years, I actually ended up being there until 2012. And then, of course, by that time, the United Nations had got tired of spending money on these tribunals and had developed a closing strategy which required that the tribunal closes by the 30th of June 2012. And therefore, all of us were put to work to try and achieve that. And yes, that tribunal in 2014 and the tribunal in ICTY, they were both not abolished, wound up. I think that's the correct thing. And the United Nations then thought it should establish a continuing tribunal to run another 30 or 40 years to do the work that those two tribunals had left undone. It was called the residual mechanism for international criminal tribunals. That is what is now abbreviated as MICT. And that's us now. And now we have been at it. We have tried every indictee except Ferisen Kaboga, who was brought to trial, yes, and he stood trial, but the judges assessed that his dementia had gone so far that he was not capable of responding, not fit to be tried. So we are holding him at the United Nations detention facility at The Hague. We, as of now, don't know exactly what to do with him. We'll probably take the problem back to the Security Council. But as of now,
he's just being held there.
He's just being held
because
there.
The judges, you've determined that he is not fit to stand trial. How did you assess this?
How did the judges assess this?
Yes.
They had him in the courtroom, so they could ask questions. They could see how he's responded. They actually took he underwent 3 different medical tests to assess his ability to respond, and all 3 came to the conclusion that he is not fit to start trial.
I see. So that's your current job.
That is one of the things I am doing now.
Many among the many other things that you're doing.
I wouldn't say many other things, but when I came back from Arusha, my desire that time was to assist our judiciary, the Kenyan judiciary, to train their judges on judgment writing. Judgment writing is a skill which in those days judges did not receive training on. You are appointed a judge today, you are sitting in the afternoon, you have got a courtroom, and you are sitting and hearing cases. it made some judges a bit shy of writing judgments, so they ended up with a lot of unwritten judgments. So when I was coming back from Arusha, and one thing I could do is assist that, and I tried to. I started, worked on for a few year or two, and then for some reasons that I need not disclose, I was unable to continue. So then I thought to myself, now here I am, this relatively young person. What else do I do? And in the meantime, I had done a training in mediation, the Institute of Mediation Training Institute of the USA. And I had then got completely convinced that litigation is not the way to get disputes resolved. The way to get disputes resolved is to get people to mediate their disputes. Disputants, people who are in dispute, sit together with the help of a mediator and agree on how they will live together, their relationship should go.
Mend fences in any other way than the acrimonious route of going to court.
Yes, there is acrimony, yes, but also delay in our courts. Remember in 2014, Chief Justice Wairimu told us that if we crossed all the courts so that no other dispute is ever filed, the judiciary would take 11 years to hear the pending suits. And of course, after 11 years, it would open the courts, and you can imagine what would happen.
Floodgates.
So now, the best way to do that, and the judiciary has recognized that, because they are now persuading everybody to refer their disputes to what they call the ADR, the Alternative Dispute Resolution Mechanisms, which have been authorized, you might use a word like that, by our Constitution in Section 159, subsection 2C, where the courts are called to promote alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, including mediation. So I train mediators in an organization called DCRI, Dispute and Conflict Resolution International, and we train mediators, both physically and online.
Okay. Your book has a chronology of your life. And in fact, it's a good thing, because at the very beginning of the book, you actually have that chronology of events from 1945, the 25th of January, in Muga village, which is now called Monyange, in Mahiga location, Lydiah division of Nyeri district, and Mugumo tree, where you were born. Coming all the way to 2024, where you have published your autobiography, Audacity and Sacrifice. Those are very many things. Your early days in school, your days through secondary school, your days into going to law school in Tanzania, graduating in 1970, working at your first at law firm HH&M, Hamilton, Harrison and Matthews, starting your own law firm, and so on and so forth, through other things that you did in serving. You served, for example, in the Select Parliamentary Committee inquiry into the murder of JM Karuki. You're representing the family. You joined the LSK. You served as chairman of the LSK Ethics and Committee, Professional Ethics Committee. You became vice chairman of LSK, chairman of LSK, and so on and so forth. Another big milestone is becoming chairman of ICJ Kenya, and then the Njonjo Commission as well, where you were lead counsel in the Njonjo Commission. All these things have happened alongside your own life, where you got married, you got daughters. Daughter number 1 is born, daughter number 2 is born, daughter number 3 is born, up to this point. Let's talk about that professional life. When did you decide you would like to practice law, to be a lawyer, and what influenced you into it?
When did I decide to become a lawyer? And the additional question of what influenced it. I'm making sure that I have understood your question.
Yes.
And you read it in a book. So even if I don't give you every detail, when you open the book, you will find it. I did my decision to become a lawyer, the conscious decision to become a lawyer. I must use the word conscious. When I first saw to myself to become a lawyer is in, I think it is September of 1957. We were walking, I went to my intermediate school in a school called Maiga Intermediate School, and we lived in Munyange village. And we used to go every morning 6 miles, or around about 9 kilometers, and every evening you go back. And one day we were walking back, and walking back actually is walking up.
It's up a hill.
It's uphill from the bottom there to get very near the forest. I was with a colleague since departed called Karemi, and we were going up, and we saw dust on the road right there far away from us, but we knew there's a motor vehicle approaching, and we were tired. At a place called Kaguda, we were tired and seeking any energy we could find to get on. So I told Karemi, well, Karemi, let's do this. And now pretend to be sick. And I'll pretend to be nursing you. And when he comes, I will just flag him down and give us a lift up this hill. Good idea. So Karemi sat down along the road. And I was there now, like I'm doing what do you call resuscitation?
Mm-hmm.
And then Gary came, the Land Rover came. It was a Land Rover, police Land Rover. And I said, no HMS Land Rover. I said, I did that. And he came and clinched. Wow. And a very tallish Muthoga gentleman came out of the Land Rover. And I said, kisimamisha mimi tena. By the time he could finish what he was saying, I am out that way and Karemi is out the other way.
He had recovered miraculously.
Miraculously. When we met with the now reassembled later on that evening, I thought about it. I said, look, but you know, he would have been sick.
For
and
real.
he did not even ask, what's the matter? He could not even find out. I thought, no. This one, I think I should be a judge. And this one will be brought before me, and I'll certainly sentence him to death. That's where now my decision to become a lawyer, I became conscious of that urge to become a lawyer.
To be a judge.
To be a judge, yes.
It's interesting, Justice, because in your book, and I mean, I always think that, and I think, a lot of people, that every individual is sum total of their experiences, but you spend quite some time talking about your early education and what you chose to describe as a turbulent time from primary school to secondary school. But we have to admit that you were quite the troublemaker. From what you yourself have said, that, but in the sense that you were not going to sit for any kind of injustice. What made you be so bold then to say that injustice was not going to be allowed? whether it was the denial of you to be in school for exams, or the denial of you to stand up and speak for your rights. What spurred that in your mind?
Fortunately, you are old enough. We were coming out of a very difficult and violent time, the emergency, where a foreign power had decided to rule over us with or without our consent. And we said no. And men and women said no. And some actually went out into the forest to chase away an oppressor called the government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And that trains you, that makes you feel it is unjust to be in your own country and to be being administered against your wish by somebody else. And I think that must have got into my nerves. And when you read the book, and I want to immediately admit that if I wasn't the one who wrote it, so I was reading it from somebody else, I would begin doubting some of the things that she says.
Yeah.
But because I am the one who did it, I'm not allowed to doubt it.
I mean, I'll give an example. You one day took what was it, machete, or what we call a cutlass, and you held it in front of a teacher, essentially, and you said, no. You basically said no, that I'm not going to allow 1, 2, 3 to happen. One of us will leave this school and it will not be me.
No, you have misread the book. What happened is that when we were in Form 4, actually on the 26th of May, I think it's 26th, it could be 23rd, but either 23rd or 26th of May, 1974. No, not 1974, 1964. I was in a school called St. Paul's Kevote. And we didn't like the school food. I guess very few people I've heard of went through secondary school or high school
and enjoyed
liked the food.
I think the word you used was unpalatable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we thought we should boycott the food. And unfortunately, I was the second oldest. There was one classmate younger than me. And I was the second one from the bottom. And in advocating for the boycott, I was caught or found by the headmaster addressing the students in the dining hall and telling them how bad the food was, and how even the principal's dog had refused to eat it. And we are being told to eat what the dogs cannot eat. And of course, I didn't know that Father Enter was just standing by the window, listening. So when he came in, he found me there on my feet with a very attentive audience. And he came and said, "Boy, what are you doing now?" And of course, I stuttered a little. And he said, "Follow me, come to my office." The office of the headmaster was about 100 yards away from the dining hall. And when I went into his office, the first word he said is, "You have been expelled."
Wow.
Huh? Expelled? Yes. Do you mean I'm not going to sit the examination here and I'm registered at the center? He said, "No. Go, and boy, go." Then I walked backwards. I went out through the door of his office onto the corridor, turned the corner, and the school store was there. I went to the store, and pulled a panga.
Yeah.
And then came back slowly to the office, and I found him busy doing some work.
You brought with you a negotiating tool. Yes.
Yeah, you might call a negotiating tool. And I stood there, and I said, "Sir, Father, I must sit the examination here. And if you decide I'm not going to sit an examination here, someone will die. Today, someone will die, and it is not me. It is not me who will die, but someone will die." Father Enter looked at me like that, and he felt scared. I may use words like that. And so he pushed back his chair and walked out that way. And there was a connecting door to the staff room. And he disappeared in the staff room. And I was left holding my panga. And I don't know what happened in the staff room. They came, they talked, whatever they did. But in a few minutes, one of the teachers came out from the staff room and came into the headmaster's office and grabbed my hand, the hand with the panga, and then took away the panga. And then I stayed there. Then they went into a long meeting. And then when the Father Enter came back, he said, "Look, you're going to go away. We have agreed to let you sit your examination here, but on condition that you must not come into the school compound more than 5 minutes before the exam starts, and you must not be there more than 5 minutes after each paper is done." Well, I felt relieved, and I said, "Thank you." And I walked and went to the dormitory now to pick up my things and my box, and exited St. Paul's.
And that was it.
That's how the issue of the panga came about.
It wasn't delinquents. It was advocating for rights.
Yes.
Okay.
Look, you are registered in that center, and you are not going to sit. You know what that means?
Take another year.
You have to take another year. At that time, there
And look
wasn't
for
even
another
that
school.
option of taking
That's it.
another year. But that's it.
If you were
Because
expelled,
That's the end.
that's
your
it.
learning had come to an end.
Yeah.
Whoa. Justice Muthoga is our guest. He is a judge at the UN Mechanism for International Criminal Tribunals. He has authored a book, Audacity and Sacrifice, talking about his life and career. Judge, you've participated in this now here. You are, of course, part of the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. You've then merged into the Yugoslavia one. Back in the country, you've participated in several inquiries, right? For example, the inquiry into the death of JM Karuki, the inquiry into the activities, or what they were called then, of the then former Attorney General and a member for, was it Kabete or Kikuyu at the point? Charles Njonjo. The inquiry into the Busia air crash and others. Let's start with the Njonjo one, no, with the JM one, the JM Karuki one. What was Parliament investigating? And what did you make of the entire exercise? You are representing the family of JM Karuki.
Yes, indeed, I was representing JM Karuki. It is not an inquiry. It was a select committee of the National Assembly. When JM Karuki was murdered, it happened in the course of a parliamentary session. And those of us who discovered his body at the city mortuary rushed to Parliament, led by his wives. And called for help. And a debate then arose, and the usual along the parliamentary standing orders rules, and after an extensive debate, it was decided that the parliament or the National Assembly should set up a select committee of itself. Such members were appointed, and Bruna Buera, then Elijah Mwangale,
Yes.
then Minister for, member for, I think it's community or
Yes.
somewhere there,
Yes.
was told to chair that committee. Of course, the select committee is just an instrument of parliament to help parliament understand what has happened. And so it was set up, and they were assigned to sit in what is now called the old chamber. Now it's a Senate chamber. In that time it used to be the old chamber. It had been the Senate chamber or the older Senate, which, as you know, was abolished in 1966. I can't remember the exact dates. But anyhow, then it was called the old chamber, and that's where we were. The commission was set up. Wait a minute, I'm getting mixed up.
The select committee.
The select committee, not the Georgia Commission, although they used the same chamber. And witnesses were brought, allowed, and they testified what they knew, how JM had been, and so on and so forth. And all my idea was just to listen and ask or seek to have someone ask a question if I needed. I thought some question might assist the family to come to the knowledge of how JM had been murdered. Because even the media, the nation had given a huge headline saying that he is in Zambia, when indeed he wasn't.
Yeah.
And the committee then wrote a report, a lengthy report called the Select Committee Report on the murder, and they delivered it, and they added there and said, look, they were actually addressing President Jomo Kenyatta, because it was, I think it was everybody's acceptance that the government had something to do with it. Nobody was able to put, because a lot of witnesses refused to talk, even when called to the committee, and some pleaded high authority and so forth. So it shook the country. I think everybody who was then old enough to know knew that the country was actually shaken
somewhere.
Quite somewhat.
At the end of it all,
at the end of it all,
do you think
the report
that there were sufficient answers given?
No, I don't think so. Even the report says so. The report says, we know you have not, and even if you don't hear us, we knock, but we have heard, and we tell you. And even they know that it was not possible to establish in real terms that Kimani, Joroge, Mwangi, Otieno, or so and so is the killer. And what we knew is that the circumstances in which he was killed involved security personnel.
In the hand of the government.
Yes.
The Njonjo Commission.
Georgia Commission is another one. And I think I always like to preamble it with saying my relationship with Mr. Charles Mugane Jojo as Attorney General, in my capacity as chairman and also vice chairman of the Law Society. That relationship may well have influenced my being asked to participate in the commission that was instituted by His Excellency President Daniel Arap Moi under the Commissioners of Inquiry Act. He instituted a commission to conduct an inquiry into the conduct of his former Attorney General, Charles Muga Jojo, who had then since, of course, resigned from being a member, being the Attorney General, become a member for Kikuyu, and thereafter resigned on being named by is it Mwangale? A traitor. And when I was called, summoned by the then Attorney General Matthew Guy Muli, who had acceded to that office following the designation of when Jojo resigned, JM Karuki became Attorney General for about a year, and he resigned. And then Joseph Kamau Kamel was appointed Attorney General, and then he was removed, and Matthew Gaimuli was made Attorney General. Matthew Gaimuli was the one who was Attorney General at the time of the Jojo Commission, and he summoned me to his office at Sheria House, and it is there then he told me that it had been decided that I should be the counsel for a commission that had been set up to inquire into the conduct of the Attorney General.
You say that your relationship with him when you are, in the leadership of LSK could have influenced the decision to make you, say, his chief prosecutor, because as lead counsel for the commission, basically you are the chief prosecutor here. Why? Did you have such a fractious relationship with Charles?
No, it's not fractious. It was just professional clarification of roles, because Attorney General wanted to force some things through the lawyers. And one of them is that his attitude towards us black lawyers was objectionable, at least quite objectionable. And he made no secret of it, that he thought Africans cannot be good lawyers. African he was, but he thought every other African can be good lawyers. And we thought that was wrong. Or good judges. And we thought that was wrong, and made it clear. The only difference is that because our composition at the Law Society at that time was largely alien, not really alien, European and Asian leadership, our voice wasn't as
you are a minority.
Yes. But I and others, I personally was not taking that easily, because we had become an independent country.
And you are
in an independent country, and you are being told you
and you're a lawyer in your own right, having gone through school. So, I want to ask the question about that commission. And the thread here is, looking back now, Judge, so many years after that commission, do you think it was pursuing justice, or was it a political persecution?
Persecution it was not, political or otherwise. But President Moi needed time to think what to do. And I think that's what led to setting up the commission, both also to satisfy himself that there is something he wasn't seeing. Because Jojo was one of his bandits, his best friends, or as we called him and JM Karuki and Gigi Karuki, of Moi's bandits. And here is your body being said to be
You're a traitor.
you are a traitor, and being said to have something to do with an attempted coup and so on and so forth. You want to get that really closed up, so I think somebody advised President Moi, or from his own initiative decided, let's have this investigated by a commission.
Yeah. Looking at all of these, I mean, all touched on the political scene in the country. And here you were as a judicial officer. Or,
No,
you
I
know,
was not a judicial.
I mean, okay, so here you are as having been a lawyer.
As a lawyer.
And then
As a jurist.
as a jurist.
Yes,
You know,
jurist, that's right.
operating within the circles that touched on the law, that touched on justice, but then also it was colored into politics. Were you able to separate what you were doing professionally from what was happening politically? Or did you see that it was necessary for those waters to merge?
There is no, it is not possible to operate either politically or judicially in independence. There is no such thing. You are a professional man, you are trained as a lawyer, right, to execute the profession of defending or advocating the rights of your clients. And that you do to the best of your ability. In fact, at law school, you are made to know that your responsibility is to your client, above all other things, and the law. Because the law is your tool, and you use it for the benefit of your client. Now, politics comes and hangs around, because if you are dealing with the politicians, how do you avoid indulging in some political activity? But it should not affect your professional.
Did you ever
commitment.
see that there would have been a time when dealing with politicians it may have affected your professional output?
I fought everything I could do to avoid ever making a decision which was politically instigated in any matter that was required a judicial determination.
Looking at those times, because we're talking about decades ago,
Yeah.
and if you can do a comparative analysis, because you've written your book on a lot of the experiences that you went through, and it's touched across board. If you catapult yourself, if those experiences, if you compared them with what happens in the country now, when you talk about not possible to have judicial and or political independence without the two touching on each other, how would you describe the situation today in the country with what you see?
The problem that one has in that is that we are comparing unlikes. In the Moi era, we lived a jurisdiction where the law, the constitution itself said that the sovereignty of the republic resided in the president. The Article 23 of the Constitution. So the president was literally able to do whatever he considered best or he deemed best in the management of public affairs and so forth. Now, after 2010, that changed. We now brought in something higher than the president called the Constitution. And the Constitution says that this must be done this way and this way and this way. And this must be done this way and this. And the confusion that is now in the country, because the country is engulfed in a constitution, is a failure to understand that we can't do the things the way Moi did them. Because now we have a superior law which says things are to be done this way and that way. And of course, adjusting that is giving some people quite considerable problems.
They say it's not just some people, but even officers of the court, judges and magistrates are also having a problem
Exactly.
living that way.
Yeah.
The Law Society of Kenya president is now accusing the judiciary of aiding and abetting the breaking of the law.
It is not, she is not accusing them. She is observing what is happening.
She's saying it as it is.
Yes, she's saying, and I would do the same. If I was back there as chairman of the law society, I would start with Judge Simpson, H. Simpson. And I told him, my lord, you are the Attorney General, the Chief Justice of Kenya. You can't allow that decree to stand, because it had been said that large cases must be taken back to the elders. And we knew what that meant. That meant that it would be an issue of who bribes best, not who is entitled to what. And I sat with him in his chambers and I said, Chief Justice, as Chief Justice of Kenya, you must not allow that decision to stand. And he actually had to have a meeting with the then Attorney General, Matthew Gaimuri, and told Matthew Gaimuri, no, that's not correct. We can't take all that cases to the Wazes because a lot of them require people who understand the law.
Yeah.
The land law, and the thing was not implemented.
So now, as senior counsel, as somebody who has even gone ahead to teach judges how to write judgments, right? And one of the accusations here is that we have seen conflicting judgments coming out of the courts.
Exactly.
What's the problem?
The problem is there are actually three possible things. One, there has been a space of time when even law reporting had ended. Decisions were not being reported. So a judge would be making a decision which he thinks is right, and probably is, but you would not remember or know that another judgment had been made which said the opposite, and so forth. That period ended, I think, in early 21st century, and an organization was set up to report, law reporting.
Yeah.
But the other one is this. We have a really large number of judges who are not adequately trained. And I'm using the words very, very advisedly because, I'm a judge. So I must be aware that other people will be hurt or pleased by what I'm saying. So I'm saying it advisedly. There are many judges who are not being adequately trained by having been a magistrate for so many years, and you have now graduated into a judge, so you have done these processes of analyzing situations possibly. A lot of judges are being plucked from the academia or from the industry, and the day after tomorrow they are made judges, and so on and so forth. And naturally, if you have been a company secretary for 10 or so years, most of the things are limited to company secretary work and things like those.
Yeah.
And if you are made a judge today, you don't immediately acquire all the necessary knowledge. The process of training and inspiring our judiciary, and also, let us face it, the amount of money we put aside for justice is pittance. They are having to survive on really very, 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 very poor budget. Yes,
right.
We have problems with money, having enough money, but also we have problems in how to allocate it, because some or not so important matters are allocated very large quotas, and others important matters like the judiciary, which holds us together. By the way, the judiciary holds this, the executive and the legislature together, because it tells us what the law says. Parliament passes the law, but Parliament doesn't tell us what the law says. It is the judges who tell us what the law says. And therefore, application of that law is subject to what the judges think.
Yeah.
And that affects every one of us. And so, if I was sitting in the treasury, a fairly good cake would go to the after the education, the next cake would go to
justice. Okay.
But I don't think the cake is shared that way.
Judge, we've run out of time, but it's a very, very interesting conversation we've had today. Justice Muthoga, judge at the UN Mechanism for International Criminal Tribunals, has been our guest. Our justice starts the conversation looking back into his life and times, My Life and Career, The Audacity and Sacrifice. This book is available, and we've been posting where it's available online. You can find it on his website, limuthoga.com. You can also find it on what? Nuria.com, is it? Yeah.
Nuria Bookshop.
Nuria Bookshop.
Or TBK, Textbook Center.
Textbook Center as well.
And probably
Prestige Bookshop.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.